3 minutes ago, something unusual happened. A threat was aimed not at an army, not at a treaty, but at a bridge. A structure designed for trucks, commuters, and supply chains, suddenly became the center of a political message. And that tells you immediately this was never about concrete or steel. The Gordie Howe International Bridge sits at one of the most economically sensitive points in North America. Every day, goods move across that narrow stretch of river that keep factories running, grocery shelves stocked, and thousands of workers employed on both sides of the border. When pressure is applied to that crossing, it is pressure applied to daily life itself. The response that followed was careful, deliberate, and noticeably calm. Instead of amplifying conflict, it redirected the conversation back to rules and agreements. The message was simple but firm. International projects are not governed by public threats. They are governed by contracts, by financing obligations, and by commitments made years in advance by two democratic governments. The point was not to escalate. The point was to establish reality. A cross-border infrastructure project cannot be switched on or off because of a political moment. Because here is the part often missed in the noise. The bridge is already structured through law. It was negotiated, approved, financed, and overseen by a binational authority designed specifically so that politics would not interrupt commerce. The response emphasized that stability matters more than rhetoric. Workers in Windsor and Detroit do not operate on speeches. They operate on schedules. Auto plants depend on parts arriving within hours, not days. Even minor disruptions ripple outward through manufacturing networks across the continent. So the reply did not frame the issue as a personal dispute between leaders. It framed it as a systems question. Are we a region governed by predictable agreements or a region governed by sudden announcements? The answer given was clear. Economic partnerships require consistency. If every election or political cycle could threaten infrastructure, investors would hesitate, factories would slow, and supply chains would relocate. The statement therefore reassured markets, local communities, and provincial governments simultaneously. It was less a rebuttal than a reminder that cooperation between neighbors is strongest when decisions are institutional, not emotional, and that a bridge meant to connect two countries should not be turned into a bargaining chip, but protected as a shared commitment to stability. What makes this situation more complicated is not the language of politics, but the mathematics of trade. The Detroit-Windsor corridor is not just a busy crossing, it is the circulatory system of a continental economy. Every hour, trucks carry auto parts that were designed in one country, assembled in another, and sold across both. A single vehicle component may cross the border multiple times before it becomes part of a finished car. That means a threat directed at the bridge does not stop at a customs booth. It travels through factories, warehouses, rail yards, and shipping schedules. The response recognized this reality and deliberately shifted the focus away from personalities and toward consequences. Instead of answering rhetoric with rhetoric, it answered with logistics. The point made was clear. When political pressure targets infrastructure, it targets workers first. The people affected are not negotiators in offices, but shift employees on production lines, truck drivers on overnight routes, and small suppliers whose businesses rely on predictable delivery windows. The message was therefore practical rather than dramatic. Stability at the border is not an abstract diplomatic idea. It is the difference between a plant running on Monday morning or sitting idle. The reply also emphasized mutual dependence, something often overlooked in moments of national posturing. Factories in Michigan depend on materials from Ontario, just as Canadian producers depend on American markets. Agricultural shipments, medical supplies, and manufacturing inputs move in both directions every single day. Interruptions do not punish one side, they disrupt both. By highlighting this interconnection, the response reframed the conversation entirely. The issue was no longer about one country gaining leverage over the other. It became about safeguarding a shared economic ecosystem that neither side can easily replace. The argument suggested that aggressive threats are impractical in a system built on synchronized timing and integrated supply chains. You cannot selectively stop a bridge without also stopping your own economy's momentum. That is why the tone remained measured. Instead of escalating tension, the statement reinforced predictability, reassuring markets and businesses that agreements would be honored and commerce would continue. The bridge, in this telling, is not merely a border crossing. It is evidence that two neighboring economies function best when cooperation outweighs confrontation, and when policy decisions respect the reality that prosperity on one side of the river is tied directly to prosperity on the other. There is another layer to what happened, and it lives in the space between a headline and a policy. Public statements can sound immediate and powerful, but governing actions move through procedures. The response understood that distinction and leaned into it. Instead of reacting to the volume of the threat, it addressed the enforceability of it. International infrastructure projects are not controlled by press conferences. They are controlled by agreements signed years earlier, ratified through legal channels, and embedded into regulatory systems. Financing has already been allocated, contractors are already at work, and oversight bodies already exist to supervise the project. By emphasizing these facts, the reply quietly reduced the temperature. It communicated that dramatic language does not instantly translate into policy. That matters because uncertainty can be more disruptive than conflict. Investors, municipalities, and transport companies watch signals carefully. If they believe rules can change overnight, they delay decisions. The statement, therefore, did something strategic. It replaced speculation with procedure. The message was that the bridge is governed by law, and law does not fluctuate with daily political messaging. The approach also revealed a communication strategy built on calm authority. Rather than meeting intensity with intensity, the tone stayed measured and almost technical. It referenced agreements, oversight mechanisms, and obligations instead of personalities. This choice was not accidental. By keeping the focus on systems, the response prevented escalation while still drawing a boundary. It told domestic audiences that national commitments would be defended, and international audiences that cooperation would continue within established frameworks. In effect, the argument was that modern partnerships depend on reliability. If every infrastructure project could be threatened by public declaration, future cross-border projects would become impossible. Companies would hesitate to invest, governments would struggle to negotiate, and communities would lose long-term planning certainty. The reply reassured them that predictability remains intact. It framed the moment not as a confrontation, but as a test of whether democratic institutions can absorb political turbulence without breaking. The underlying point was subtle, yet firm. Stability comes from rules, not reactions, and the strength of a partnership is measured by how consistently those rules are upheld, even during moments of political pressure. Beyond the immediate exchange, the discussion turned toward durability. Large infrastructure projects are designed with a timeline measured not in election cycles, but in decades. The Gordie Howe International Bridge was negotiated through multiple administrations, approved by legislatures, and supported by regional authorities that will remain long after current leaders leave office. The response emphasized this continuity. It pointed out that agreements between neighboring countries are intentionally structured to survive political turnover. Procurement contracts bind builders, financing structures bind lenders, and regulatory approvals bind governments. That framework exists precisely so that a project connecting two economies cannot be destabilized by short-term pressure. The message reassured communities watching the headlines with concern. Local businesses near the crossing, logistics companies planning routes, and municipal planners coordinating road networks depend on long-term certainty. By underscoring the institutional nature of the bridge, the reply reminded everyone that democratic governance relies on predictability. Leaders may change their tone, but institutions maintain commitments. The bridge therefore represents something larger than transportation. It demonstrates whether public policy can remain steady, even when politics becomes turbulent. This point also served a broader purpose. Investors and international partners observe how countries handle disagreement. If a major infrastructure project could be derailed by political messaging, confidence would weaken far beyond one border crossing. The response therefore highlighted oversight bodies and binational authorities that supervise the project independently of day-to-day political debate. It presented the system as resilient rather than fragile. The tone was deliberate, almost administrative, reinforcing that the project is not an informal arrangement but a structured obligation. In doing so, the reply drew a contrast between temporary controversy and permanent commitments. Communities needed to hear that construction schedules would continue, financing would remain secure, and cross-border cooperation would endure. The argument ultimately suggested that strong partnerships are proven not during easy moments, but during tense ones. When institutions continue to function despite rhetoric, they show reliability. The bridge, then, becomes evidence that two neighboring democracies can absorb disagreement without abandoning cooperation, maintaining stability not because conflict never occurs, but because shared agreements are built to outlast it. Another notable element was tone. In moments of political friction, language often accelerates faster than policy, and escalation can happen simply through wording. The response chose the opposite direction. Instead of mirroring confrontational phrasing, it remained steady, almost careful, as if each sentence was designed not only to answer a statement, but to calm an audience. That audience was larger than a single country. Financial markets, provincial governments, and international partners were all listening for signals of instability. The message conveyed was that reliability itself is a form of leadership. By avoiding personal remarks and focusing on shared commitments, the reply lowered the likelihood of retaliation cycles that can spiral into economic consequences. This restraint was not weakness, it was strategy. When governments react emotionally, uncertainty spreads quickly. Businesses pause investments, transportation firms adjust routes, and communities fear disruption. The measured wording instead projected confidence that agreements would hold. The bridge became a reminder that cooperation requires discipline and that maintaining calm communication during pressure is often more effective than sharp responses delivered for immediate applause. The careful tone also helped shape international perception. Countries observing from outside North America look for signs of predictability in major trading partners. If disagreements appear volatile, confidence in supply chains declines. The response, therefore, presented steadiness as reassurance. It emphasized ongoing collaboration between agencies, engineers, and border authorities working daily on practical details rather than political disputes. By highlighting routine cooperation, the statement shifted attention away from the momentary controversy and toward everyday functioning. That shift matters because economic systems depend on trust more than declarations. The reply implicitly argued that the relationship between neighbors is built through thousands of coordinated actions, not a single headline. Calm language communicated that both nations benefit when disagreements are handled through diplomacy rather than spectacle. The broader point was subtle but clear. Credibility is earned through consistency. When leaders demonstrate patience under pressure, they reinforce confidence that cross-border projects will proceed regardless of political noise, ensuring that workers, travelers, and businesses can plan their futures without fear of sudden disruption. The response was also directed inward, not only outward. While the exchange appeared international, a significant audience was domestic. Citizens watching the news wanted to know whether their government would defend national projects funded with public resources. The bridge represents jobs, investment, and regional development for communities near the border. Construction workers, suppliers, and transportation companies have planned years around its completion. The reply, therefore, reassured people that commitments made to them would not be unsettled by external pressure. It emphasized responsibility. Governments are expected to protect economic stability for their own population first. By speaking calmly yet firmly, the message conveyed that national interests were being safeguarded without creating unnecessary conflict. The focus stayed on practical effects rather than symbolic confrontation. That distinction mattered. Many residents depend on predictable border movement for daily employment. Even small disruptions can affect shifts, wages, and delivery schedules. The statement addressed those concerns by reinforcing continuity. Instead of dramatizing the moment, it framed the situation as manageable within existing agreements. The underlying assurance was that long-term planning, both public and private, would remain secure. The reply also acknowledged regional leadership and cooperation within the country. Provincial authorities, municipalities, and labor organizations all play roles in cross-border infrastructure planning. They require confidence that federal commitments remain stable. By reaffirming support for the project, the response aligned national policy with local expectations. This helped prevent internal uncertainty that could slow development or deter investment. The message highlighted coordination among agencies, engineers, and transportation planners who continue their work regardless of political rhetoric. That emphasis turned attention back to everyday governance, permits being issued, roads being prepared, and logistics networks being organized. It communicated that institutions function continuously, not episodically. The broader implication was that effective leadership does not simply respond to external statements. It reassures its own citizens first. Stability at home strengthens credibility abroad. By maintaining a composed tone while clearly upholding commitments, the response showed that protecting workers, communities, and economic planning is the priority, and that international disagreements would be handled without risking the livelihoods connected to the bridge's completion. There is also a practical dimension that rarely receives attention during political exchanges: infrastructure as preparedness. A second major crossing between Windsor and Detroit is not only about efficiency, it is about redundancy. For decades, a single primary route has carried an extraordinary share of commercial traffic. Any accident, weather event, or unexpected closure can interrupt the delivery of essential goods. The response highlighted that the bridge strengthens resilience. Medical equipment, fuel shipments, and food distribution depend on reliable transportation corridors. When a region relies on just one pathway, it risks widespread disruption from a localized problem. By emphasizing preparedness rather than rivalry, the message reframed the project as a public safety measure. It explained that modern economies require backup systems in the same way cities require emergency services. The bridge therefore becomes part of planning for emergencies rather than a point of political negotiation. This perspective also clarified why the project continues regardless of rhetoric. Governments have an obligation to reduce vulnerabilities affecting millions of people. The focus shifted from confrontation to continuity, reinforcing that infrastructure decisions are based on risk management, not temporary disputes. The argument extended beyond economics into stability. Cross-border cooperation during emergencies depends on reliable routes for responders and supplies. Natural disasters, industrial incidents, or health crises require rapid coordination between neighboring jurisdictions. A dependable crossing supports that coordination. The reply suggested that preparation is itself a form of diplomacy. By building shared systems that function under pressure, countries strengthen trust more effectively than through statements alone. Communities on both sides of the river benefit when movement remains possible, even during difficult circumstances. The emphasis on preparedness communicated seriousness without dramatization. It reminded listeners that infrastructure planning anticipates challenges years in advance, not days. By focusing on resilience, the statement avoided personal conflict while still justifying firm commitment to completion. The broader point was that stability is built physically as well as politically. Roads, bridges, and transport networks quietly sustain cooperation every day. Protecting such systems ensures that future crises do not become economic emergencies, and that neighboring societies remain connected even when conditions are uncertain. Finally, the moment carried a wider meaning about alliances. The countries connected by the river have been partners for generations, sharing defense coordination, intelligence cooperation, and the largest bilateral trading relationship in the world. A disagreement over a bridge therefore echoes beyond a construction site. The response recognized this and carefully separated disagreement from relationship. It acknowledged that political narratives can flare up, especially during intense domestic debates, but long-standing partnerships are built on habits of cooperation developed over decades. By keeping the language measured, the message reassured observers that the foundation of the relationship remained intact. The bridge was described not as a pressure point, but as proof of interconnection. Thousands of commuters cross daily, families live on opposite sides, and industries operate as if the border were a schedule rather than a barrier. The statement subtly reminded audiences that shared prosperity depends on mutual respect. Even when tensions appear in public discourse, responsible leadership keeps the broader partnership steady. The closing idea emphasized boundaries within friendship. Cooperation does not mean surrendering autonomy, and partnership does not mean accepting coercion. The response made clear that respectful dialogue is welcome, but decisions tied to lawful agreements will proceed. That position balanced reassurance with firmness. It told international partners that collaboration would continue while signaling that public threats would not redefine policy. The argument suggested that alliances endure precisely because they can absorb disagreement without collapsing into hostility. By focusing on values such as predictability, respect, and institutional trust, the message elevated the discussion beyond a single episode. The bridge thus became symbolic of a larger principle. Neighbors remain strongest when they resolve disputes through established channels rather than pressure. The broader implication was hopeful rather than confrontational. Long-term relationships are maintained not by avoiding every conflict, but by handling conflict without abandoning cooperation. In that sense, the project stands as a reminder that connection is a choice renewed repeatedly, and stability comes from honoring commitments even during moments of political strain. Another important dimension in this situation is the information environment itself. Large international projects rarely enter everyday conversation, yet a single dramatic statement can instantly move them into the center of public attention. The response recognized that people were not only reacting to policy, but reacting to uncertainty. When audiences hear that a major crossing could become a bargaining tool, they imagine immediate disruption: closed lanes, delayed shipments, empty shelves, and halted work shifts. The reply therefore worked to slow that reaction. It clarified timelines, obligations, and procedures, emphasizing that construction schedules and operational planning continue under established agreements. This was less about rebutting a threat and more about stabilizing perception. Public confidence matters because modern economies run on expectations as much as on infrastructure. If trucking companies anticipate delays, they reroute early. If manufacturers expect interruptions, they scale back production before anything actually happens. By reinforcing the predictability of the project, the message prevented speculation from becoming self-fulfilling. It reminded listeners that public commentary travels quickly, but implementation moves through legal and administrative channels. The core point was reassurance. Information should not outrun reality, and headlines should not replace the operational facts guiding cross-border cooperation. The statement also highlighted the responsibility of leadership during fast-moving news cycles. In a connected world, financial markets, supply chain managers, and local communities respond almost instantly to perceived risk. A careful reply can therefore function as economic protection. By providing clear explanations instead of emotional reactions, the response helped anchor expectations. It showed that governance involves managing reactions as well as managing policy. When citizens understand that agreements remain intact, daily routines continue uninterrupted. Commuters plan travel, businesses schedule deliveries, and investors maintain confidence. The broader lesson extended beyond the bridge itself. Public communication is part of infrastructure because clarity keeps systems functioning smoothly. A stable message reduces panic, and reduced panic prevents unnecessary disruption. The underlying idea was straightforward. The strength of an international partnership is measured not only by how projects are built, but by how leaders communicate when tension appears. Calm explanation preserves trust, and trust ensures that cooperation continues even while political debate unfolds in the background.